15 seconds till airtime.
I had a girlfriend tell me that once. It was really embarrassing. I had no idea what she meant.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Congressional Prayer Conference of Washington, D.C. We would encourage you to join us in a little bit if you'd like. There's two ways to be on this television program. First of all, it's going all over the world. Wherever the World Wide Web is, that's where we're at. We're on right now. We're going to be talking about a lot of subjects tonight. I am the chairman of the Congressional Prayer Conference of Washington, D.C. I'm also the pastor of this church, which is the headquarters for the Congressional Prayer Conference. It's also the headquarters for an organization called White Horse Family Rights Council .live. And we're here to demand that the world honor family rights. We're here to do that not because we're Americans, but because we're Christian. And God demands that. So that's why we're here. I have with me one of my deputy prayer warriors, J. Stephen Davis. And he's the guy's previously working away on the computer to find out what in the world's going on in this world.
Absolutely.
And we welcome you to the show. If you have something you'd like to add, help him produce. He is the producer, and we are live on the air, and we thank the Lord for it. Now later we'll tell you if you'd like to come back and watch the show later. If you have to go somewhere and miss the show, that's okay too. We understand. We were told a few weeks ago that there are 645,000.
Thank you.
645,000 people that subscribe to this program. I don't know if that's true or not. I just believe what they say. Now, we want you to know whether you're 640,000 or 6. That's God's business, not ours. But we're here to talk about praying America back to one nation under God, doing everything we can to protect America, doing everything we can to protect the church, doing everything we can to serve Almighty God. And with that in mind, I want to turn the program over for a few moments to my producer, J. Stephen Davis, and have him tell us a little bit about what he's coming up with from the internet on Facebook, Twitter, etc. So, Mr. Davis, welcome and God bless you. Share with our audience what's on your heart.
A couple of different things going on, and it is interesting that people are not being aware of what in the heck's going on. As y'all know, Dr. Drake ran under the American Independent Party as a presidential candidate. And of course he had to make his personal, or not personal, but his policy positions notice to everybody. And one of the things that he had been saying for quite some time was that we needed to be very protective of the Muslim immigration problem and better vetting so we didn't let bad people come in here. It's also one of the problems with having the open border at the south end of the country is we don't know who the heck is coming across the Rio Grande River into the United States. We don't know if it is poor Mexicans who apparently cannot fix their own country, so they have to come goof up our country and they're just looking for, quote, jobs, or is it terrorists who are sneaking into our country to do bad things to us? So this is his position, and his, and had been his position for quite some time. Of course, that position was then taken up by Donald Trump, who said that we must better vet, do background investigations on the people coming in from Muslim countries. And of course, the liberal progressive media went berserk. So now all of a sudden we have this Somali who is clearly a Muslim, certainly has a Muslim name, says that because he could not assimilate he had to go crazy, try to run over a bunch of people with a car, and then hack a bunch of people with a butcher knife. Okay, now we have a couple of interesting issues with that. First of all, there was no gun involved. So, Cain and the other liberal progressives who claimed this was an active shooter event absolutely, positively, totally lied to you. They lied to you. They are liars. It was not a gun event. It was a car and a knife event. So please stop lying to we the people. Number two, he certainly was one of the Muslim threats that Pastor Drake and Donald Trump had identified, and lo and behold, their position turned out to be absolutely true. That makes it real easy. The next thing is this amazing position of the liberal, progressive, democratic, communist media and politicians that say, oh, we can't have personal responsibility anymore for anything. We're going to have to blame it on his environment or his school or the way people treated him, etc., etc., etc. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have an idea. As you know, in addition to my duties and responsibilities here at the First Southern Baptist Church of Buena Park and the Congressional Prayer Conference for Washington, D.C., I also am the head of the Center for Second Amendment Studies. And that's exactly what I do, is I stay up to speed on Second Amendment issues, self-protection issues, constitutional rights under the Second Amendment issues, so that I can pass them on to our audience and to people during our classes so they can understand what exactly their rights are under the Second Amendment. So here's what my idea is. I think it'll be the position of the Center for Second Amendment Studies that because of the undue, unbelievable, unfair violation of our rights pressure being put on us by liberal, progressive, communist media, liberal, progressive, communist politicians, and anti-gunners, that we are being put under so immense pressure that the only way we can avoid the medical problem of post-traumatic stress disorder is by buying more guns, buying more ammunition, and training with them every chance we get. And that will keep us from having that mental issue of post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's going to become our official position.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we must stand up and fight. The time for pacifism is over. I never did like pacifism, and I sure don't like it now. It is over, it is done, and we must follow Jesus,
What? Wait a
who was
minute.
not a pacifist.
Wait a minute.
Yes, what?
I need to ask you a really hard question.
What's that?
Didn't you just buy a new gun?
Yeah.
Didn't that reduce your stress?
Yes.
So the idea worked.
The idea
Thank
worked. It worked. So, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people quite often ask, why do we do what we do? And I tell them simply, because we follow the Bible, the Jesus book. My own personal choice is the KJV, the King James Version. Now that may be because I'm from the South and we have KJV there quite often. But I really believe, after what little bit of studies that I've had and earning the 2 or 3 doctor's degrees that I earned and the 2 or 3 that was awarded me honorarium, I do believe that the King James Version is the best English translation we have of the Holy Scriptures. Now, I'm not going into that tonight. We'll just move ahead. But I do want you to know Jesus said in the Bible that we need to pray, we need to prepare, and we need to arm ourselves. And I am a pistol-packing preacher. I am an armed preacher. I am an armed citizen in the United States of America. United States of America didn't give me that right. God gave me the right. Now, hopefully, the United States of America most of the time has guaranteed those rights. We've lost a lot of those guarantees because they're ungodly men like Barry Soetoro. You all call him Barack Hussein Obama. I prefer to go by his birth certificate. That's what it says. My birth certificate doesn't say, hey, my name is Joe. My birth certificate says, my name is Wiley Smead Drake. And that is my name. And I ask you to use that. If you don't like my questioning and doubting Barry Soetoro or Barack Hussein Obama, I would encourage you to go to the website, look up the evidentiary packet. It's about 75 or 80 pages put together by Sheriff Joe Arpaio, Mike Volan, and some other deputies, an attorney by the name of Orly Tates, another attorney by the name of Gary Creep, and another attorney by the name of Clayton Trotter, and other attorneys all over the country, Alan Parker, and so forth. If you'll go there, you'll find the truth. The way you go there is simply go to where's, ask yourself a question. Where's Obama's birth certificate.com? And you'll find out exactly where it is. It's non-existent.
That brings up an interesting issue.
All right, go ahead.
Did you want to talk about your new litigation?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the issues that we have under our First Amendment is that although it is, quote, the First Amendment, it has a whole bunch of different rights in it. And so you have to do an analysis on what it is. In the First Amendment, there are four basic rights. First is freedom of speech. You can give your opinion. You can talk on a subject and you can't get in trouble for that. Number two is your freedom of religion. You can choose if you wish to practice a religion, and if so, what religion you wish to practice.
Now, let me stop you just for a minute and tell you why we're talking about this. Some time ago, there was a young man who was speaking against the government, speaking out for Second Amendment rights, and very articulately talking about the need for men and women to stand up against a tyrannical government. I heard about him, and I followed him and listened to him, and I thought he was very articulate and very godly. And shortly after that, he asked me, Pastor Drake, will you be my pastor? And so he's my parishioner. I'm his pastor because I said yes. Now, the government saw fit to put him in jail now for about 6 years, to beat him, to put him into special units, and to abuse him brutally in prison. And I began to try to communicate with him and was able to communicate with him. And he called me one day. He did not know that it was the time of day like right now when I'm on the television, when I'm on the air. And I have my cell phone here right now. If you call me right now on my cell phone, I'll answer my cell phone even though I'm live on the air. So Mr. Cox, Francis Schaefer Cox, called his pastor for counseling. Called his pastor for counseling, abiding by the rules of the prison, and called his pastor for counseling. And I counseled with him over the telephone. Now, I did not shut the show down. I did not do anything but continue on. And they took away his phone privileges as well as mine. We'll talk about that in a minute. Do we have a caller on the line?
Yeah, good evening, brothers in Christ at the First Southern Baptist Church, Buena Park, Pastor Wiley, Stephen Davis, I assume.
Yes.
Absolutely, sir.
And Bobby, if I could, I was right in the middle. It wasn't your fault. You didn't know I was, but I'm right in the middle of something I want to deal with before we go any further. So
Yeah.
if you just hang on.
Sure.
What I did, folks, was agree to be Francis Schaefer Cox's pastor. They put him in jail. He called me for counsel as his pastor. And the Marion Prison organization shut down his telephone rights and my telephone rights And it's bad enough that they would abuse a prisoner like that, but I am a minister of the gospel. I'm a licensed pastor. I'm an ordained pastor. And I'm a man of God. And this man was one of my parishioners in prison. And I believe Jesus when he said you ought to visit those in prison. So I did. Now, I was not able to go all the way to Illinois to visit with him, so I visited with him by telephone. And as we're visiting by telephone, it just so happened I was on my television show. And so it went out over the air, and the prison took away his phone privileges, but they also took away my privilege to minister to my parishioner. And so they violated my constitutional rights of freedom of religion. And today I filed another lawsuit against Barack Hussein Obama.
Well, let me clear it a little bit.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the problems with the government is also the courts. And so the government gets to control how you get to sue them. And instead of making it simple, which you can understand why they don't like that, they put all sorts of barriers in front of you. So one of the barriers you have to get around is you have to file what's called a federal tort, T-O-R-T, claim. This theoretically is a way that the government can see a problem ahead of time, fix it before they get sued. The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know of any time they've ever done that. So what they do is they keep you on hold for up to 180 days before you can file the lawsuit. So today, what Pastor Drake got created, all the evidence put on it, and then mail served to everybody, was a federal tort claim, which is what he has to do before he can file an actual lawsuit in a court of law.
All right, so I've taken the first step, ladies and gentlemen, and many of you know back in 2008, Dr. Alan Keyes and I brought a federal case against Barack Hussein Obama. And if you'd like to know more about that case, you know how the attorneys talk about a case. They say if you want to hear oral arguments, that's the arguments that are put on by both sides. If you'd like to hear oral arguments in that case where I sued Obama, you can go to Drake v. for versus Obama. And that's the way they put the cases in there, so-and-so versus so-and-so. And in that case, back in 2008, it was Drake v. Obama. Now, I've not been able to file another case yet. I had to go through this procedure called the tort claim, and I filed, though, today that tort claim. So, in essence, I am going to sue Barack Hussein Obama once again, and I covet your prayers. The reason I am is because he violated my personal religious freedom and rights.
Yep.
I have a freedom to worship any way I see fit. The Constitution is very clear that the Bible has given me the right to practice my religion, and the government doesn't have the right to take it away. We fought a war over that, fought several wars over that, but the bottom line is Barack Hussein Obama, as president of the country, took my rights away by not allowing me to verbalize and to talk to my parishioner who's in prison. He also violated my constitutional rights of freedom of press, because now for some 15 or so years I've been the host of a show on television, I've been on radio, and I am in the media. I'm a member of the media. And the government cannot tell the media, no, you can't talk about that. But that's what they said to me.
Well, that means you have three things in your claim then. Freedom of speech,
Yes.
which is the freedom to associate, get to talk to him. You're his minister, so you get to minister to him.
Yep.
And you're the media. You have three rights that were violated.
Yes.
Oh my good heavens.
So I'm going to go after Barry Soetoro, better known as Barack Hussein Obama, and I covet your prayers. And if you'd like to make a comment about it, you're welcome to call in on this show. Brother Bobby Bible is called in. He's on the air. I side-pocketed him for a moment because I wanted to sort of clear the air on where we're going with this. And then, Bobby, if there's anything else you'd like to share, please feel free to do so.
Well, Lord, we just pray for Wiley and this case and trying to minister to a person in jail, like he says. We are commissioned to do that. We thank you for him doing that. And we just pray that Stephen and him and whoever else may help them has the wisdom to see it through and to gain a victory. And we'll give you the glory in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Now, I ask you one question. What is this guy in jail for, and why do they say you cannot talk to him anymore?
Because he said under the Second Amendment, when the government becomes tyrannical, you can use firearms to protect your rights. They said that made him a terrorist, and they put him in jail. They said that he specifically threatened somebody, which he did not.
So they put him in jail for a terrorist threat. He's been in jail now 6 years. He's a young man. He has a young wife and children. One of the child was born just weeks before they put him in jail, and he's only seen that baby once when he was just a baby. And the other one he hasn't seen again as well. So he has been in prison. They put him in special prison, specialists for terrorists, and they've beaten him and they've starved him.
Oh, it's even worse. His family and his entire case is in Alaska. They moved him to Illinois, thousands of miles away from his family.
And so the family can't even go and visit him on visit day because they'd have to go all the way to Illinois. In this 6 years, that wife has only been able to go and visit one time. In fact, that's one of the reasons we got involved, was because we were trying to help. We're a small church. We don't have much money, but we were hoping maybe someone else would help us with this man and maybe donate a little money to help get the wife to Illinois. And some people did, and that was taken care of, and they got one visit. But we're asking people now to do two things. Number one, pray. And number two, finance the legal fiasco that their family is trying to mount. And so if you want to make a donation, you can do so.
Oh yeah, you cannot, ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to explain how expensive what it is that Pastor Drake is trying to do. For example, once he gets this claim started, if he wants to take depositions, and that's how you do cases, you put the person under oath in front of a court reporter and you ask them questions. And that's done in every lawsuit that I know of. The problem is he would have to go back to Marion, Illinois to take the warden's deposition. If Obama is going to be living in Washington, he's going to have to go back to Washington to take Obama's deposition. And if he wants to take Francis Cox's deposition, he has to go into the prison in Marion, Illinois to take his deposition. So there's $20,000 in costs right there. That's how, unfortunately, expensive litigation is, and that's why we need your help.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's not like we're trying to raise money to have a bunch of money. We're just raising money so we can get the job done. The man's name is Francis Schaefer Cox. He's a young man. He's in his 30s, I believe.
Yes?
And has a young wife and 2 children. And he is a political prisoner. Now, I want to tell you one other thing about political prisoners. There's many other political prisoners around our nation. We had, I believe it was 7 people arrested, put in prison in Oregon because they wanted to feed their cows and water them from their own property. And they were arrested as terrorists. Mr. Cliven Bundy from out in Nevada was arrested, and they went to court in Oregon and have been fighting that fight as well. And so we have a lot of men and women as well in prison because they dared challenge the United States government. And so I would ask you to pray for all those political prisoners. I would ask you also to pray for my pastor. My pastor is a pastor in New York. He pastors a church called Atwa World Community Church. And I happen to be a member of that church and happen also to be asked by the staff of that church to become one of their assistant pastors. So I'm an assistant pastor there in New York under the Honorable James David Manning. And he has been my mentor and my pastor. But the reason I bring that up is James David Manning also does a television program, and he is going to start raising up an organization on his program as well as on this program, and it's going to be dealing with political prisoners in America. And we're going to tell the truth on the James David Manning show and on the Wiley Drake show. We're going to tell the truth of what the government is doing. And we hope that you'll help us. We hope you'll listen. We hope you'll pray. We hope you'll donate, whatever the Lord lays on your heart. But we need to bring, there's several other men. I don't have them all on the top of my head, but there's several men and women that are in jail today, not because they were crooks or criminals, but because the courts said they were.
Well, we have the Hammonds who are down here not too far from us.
Yep.
We know that the Bundys are going to go to trial really quick in Las Vegas over that fiasco, the Bundy Ranch fiasco. We're hoping that Trump is going to keep his word and pardon the Bundys and pardon the Hammonds because they were the victims of this outrageous Obama administration.
And just to show you how outrageous it is, I met a man with Cliven Bundy and his wife Carol down in Bunkerville, Nevada. I went there because the rancher, Cliven Bundy and his wife and others said that the Bureau of Land Management had said you can't use your grass to feed your cows. You can't use your own water to feed your cows. You have to do it the way the government tells you to. And Mr. Bundy said, no, I've had this property in this ranch has been in my property for over 100 years. And so he said, I'm going to feed them my grass and my water. And the Bureau of Land Management came in, strong-arming them. That's illegal in and of itself, because if you look up the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, their job is to control the land. They're not to control it, though, with weapons. They do not have authorization from the government to carry weapons. And yet, we found out that when they showed up, there were going to be some 200 of them there in Bunkerville, and each of them would not only have a long gun, but a pistol. And so when they showed up, a number of us, citizens that were legally armed, showed up and said no, and there was a standoff. In fact, the man with the Bureau of Land Management said later the reason they backed down is because they counted and we had more guns than they did. That was back in 2014. Well, later the government came against Mr. Bundy and his boys, his sons, and some other people. And by the way, while I was there, I met a man by the name of Lavoy Finicum. Lavoy Finicum was a rancher in the area nearby, actually up in Oregon, but nearby, and he said, I'm going down there to stand and to go down there and try to give a voice of understanding between the government and between these men who are being attacked. And he asked me to go with him, and we headed our way there. And unfortunately for me, or fortunately, however you look at it, Lavoy Finicum made it there to Oregon, And I didn't because I got caught in a snowdrift. And when Lavoie got there, they set up a meeting and they asked Lavoie to be the negotiator. And Lavoie Finicum agreed to be the negotiator, working with the FBI, working with the BLM, and they were going to be the negotiators between the authorities and those that were living in the center there that belonged to the government. And the government said they took it over. That was a lie. They did not take it over. The government gave them the keys to that facility, and they went into that facility and were camped out there and stayed there for a while, and the government finally said that they had, quote, taken over the place. And Mr. Lavoie Finicum went up there to try to negotiate this confrontation between the government and these men who were his friends. Well, during that negotiation, the FBI sent their people out to cut the limbs off of the trees so that they would be able to see the road more clear. And when Lavoie Finicum and some ladies and gentlemen went to that meeting to negotiate, the FBI didn't yell halt, they didn't yell stop, they just attacked them on the road. And they started shooting into the vehicle and shot one man in the arm. And Lavoie Finicum got out of the vehicle and said, please don't shoot. There's men and women in this truck. Please don't shoot. If you got to shoot somebody, shoot me. And he stood outside and they took him at his word and they shot and they killed Lavoie Finicum, my brother in Christ, my fellow patriot. And I am sad that he's dead, but nobody's been put in jail for that. There has been, I understand, 3 or 4 of the FBI that have been at least threatened with indictment over their excessive use of force.
And for lying about it afterwards.
Yes, and so that's the ongoing part of that. So I want you to pray for James David Manning in New York, because he is setting up a special website for political prisoners in America. Who would have ever thought that we'd have a prison, a special prison in America for terrorists and prisoners? And who would have ever thought that we would have to fight for our political freedom in America and have to go to prison for it? So I ask you to pray for James David Manning and for Wiley Drake and for others who are standing up against the murdering of Lavoie Finicum and against the jailing of the Bundy sons and some other folk and lady that were put in jail because they were at the standoff. And so I want you to pray for them. And I want you to thank God for the snowstorm, because had I not been in that snowstorm, I might have been killed with Lavoie. And thank God, because even though I was at the standoff where these other men were arrested, I was not arrested. I don't know why God saw fit to do that, but that's in his business, not mine.
Let's talk about that a little bit. A couple things going on, then I want to get back to this not nice Somali guy. The Oath Keepers who were involved in some of that have suddenly called a meeting up in Utah for what appears to be some sort of a organization of a national movement now that Trump has been elected, and trying to get our constitutional rights back to the front of the line where they're supposed to be, and not something that the politicians spend all their time trying to figure out how to get around.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to serve as the chaplain. The man that started Oath Keepers is Stuart Rhodes, and there's many other great men of God that have served with Oath Keepers. I am one of them, and while I was serving with them, I agreed to be their chaplain. So I am a chaplain to Oath Keepers. There was another group that was formed here in Southern California under the same motif, if you will, but they changed the name to Guardians of the Oath, because they felt like there were certain things that Oath Keepers did not want to get involved in, i.e. political action, and the guardians of the oath did, and that's not to say they're right and we're wrong, or we're wrong and they're right. It just is simply to say we do have another organization, and it is my privilege also to serve not only as a chaplain of Oath Keepers, but to serve as chaplain to the guardians of the oath. And Mr. Davis, if there's someone in the Southern California area that would like to attend one of the Guardian of the Oath meetings, you don't have to join. We just welcome you to attend. Tell them when they can do that, would you, and where?
Our meetings, or I'm one of the directors of the Guardians of the Oath in addition to being their legal advisor. Their meetings are at the Old World Village in Huntington Beach, and that's right by Highway 39 and 405. A very nice place to go to. Food there is great. I don't drink the beer, but I've told the beer is great. It is the second Tuesday of every month, and it starts at about 7. Like you get there a little bit early. It goes till about 9. They have all sorts of good speakers, good demonstrations. They have a nice gift contest, which is really fun, and it gives you a chance to hear the truth about what is actually going on. So we invite you to our next Oath Keepers meeting. There'll be one the second Tuesday of December, so we'd like to have you there, and we look forward to seeing you there. The other thing we'd like to invite you, and it's related to the Guardians, is we'd like to invite you to our Family Alert Terrorist Survival class coming up December 17th here at the First Southern Baptist Church in Buena Park. This will be a Saturday. The class will go from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And what we're doing, which is a little different, is we are offering the class to families. We want you to bring you and your kids to the class. We put an age limit of about 12 on it because there are some physical exercises that you're going to be learning. Primarily how to take a handgun, a knife, or an assault rifle away from a bad guy. So it does take a little bit of effort to do that. We expect you to dress comfortably. We want you to let us know in advance you're going to be there because we're going to provide lunch and refreshments for you. So we need to know how much of that to provide. We are offering a special price on this of $100 for an entire family. So all you have to do is tell us how many are going to be there and we will plan accordingly. You can get a hold of us by texting the word alert and your name and phone number to 951-261-0799, or you can text a request for information to Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, at att.net, or you can email to me at jsdllg@gmail.com and make the same request. We look forward to having you here. We've already got people that are signed up ready to come. We'd like to have you join us. And in light of the terrorist attacks that we keep seeing against police officers and students and other civilians, we think that this would be a really good investment in a little bit of time and effort to learn how to stay alive as this terrorist threat continues.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, let me correct you for a minute, the terrorist threat has become more than a threat.
That's true.
It is both a threat and an actuality. And while you were talking about that, I got a text from my grandson. I happen to have a grandson that's 16 years of age, and the reason I remember that, even as an old grandpa, is that his birthday is the same as the year. So he was, his birthday is in the year 16. So he's 16 years of age. I talked to him about this class, and he said he would like to attend. And then I have a granddaughter who is not quite 12 yet, but she will be in a day or two. And she said, Grandpa, when I'm 12, can I attend? So my grandson and my granddaughter said they wanted to attend, and I said, we'll make sure you get signed up, and we've done that. And then it just seems that just sort of caught on with our men, and he said, that's a good idea you came up with, Wiley. And I didn't really come up with it, God did. I just was being a good grandpa to my grandkids and celebrating Thanksgiving, and knowing that my grandkids and I do not spend a lot of time together. It's hard for us to know what to talk about. What do you talk to about with a 16-year-old when you're 73? And I'm sure that 16-year-old thinks, well, what in the world can I talk to my grandpa about? And so we found an area there of mutual interest. And so I would encourage that if you and your wife and your children
Or grandkids.
could work together on a mutual issue and come and join that. It's a one-day seminar, starts at 9 o'clock, ends at 4. It's a lot of work, but we would encourage you to come. I believe you'll do two things. I believe you'll have fun, first of all. And second of all, when you walk away from it, you'll be better equipped to fight the bad guys.
There are two things that are really important that on Facebook, I'm just now looking at Facebook. That's why I'm on the computer during the show, is I keep track of what's going on and people send us information. Just looking at an article where a 13-year-old was home alone and burglars broke into the house and started threatening him. He was able to get to a firearm and was able to take both of the burglars out.
Amen.
Not too bad for a 13-year-old.
Amen.
And that's exactly what we would teach you how to do. The other thing with this Somali who at Ohio State, you first used a car and then a knife to hurt all these people, is it was not an active shooter event. No gun was involved. Kane and the rest of the liberal media and politicians are lying to you. Let me give you a hint. I have been in the anti-counter-terrorist business for decades. I used to fly aerial surveillance in places that were not nice. I have some other interesting things that if we ever get together, I'll be able to show and tell you the story, and you'll see that this is something I have a little bit of knowledge about. The answer is, terrorists will kill you regardless of what you think they may or may not have. I can tell you that I could easily kill more people with a car and a knife and a little bit of gasoline than you could ever kill with a gun. So this, if we take all the guns away from everybody, everybody will be safe. No, they won't. I do not know how you're going to be able to stop a madman in a car trying to run you over unless you can get to your car in a hurry, but I bet you can stop him if you have a firearm on your side.
That's right.
So what we teach you how to do is how to take a gun and a knife and an assault rifle away from a bad guy. So it worked well with this Somali at Ohio State University if somebody knew how to take the knife away from him.
That's right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of things going on. I want to remind you of one that is coming up. It's not too far away. It's actually in January. As you know, the new president has been elected. Now, we know there's some question about that, but nonetheless, I believe it's going to hold, and I hope it does. And on January the 20th, Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 45th President of the United States. I'm excited about that. I'll tell you in a heartbeat, I don't like everything there is to know about Mr. Trump.
Nah.
But I do think he's a good man. I think he's a godly man. And I do believe he'll do what's right for America. And so he will be sworn in on January the 20th, 2017. I will be there, the Lord willing. I've already got my ticket. I've already got a table. There is a great presidential inaugural prayer breakfast being held at the Trump Hotel. And that will be held at the Trump Hotel at 1100 Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, 1100 Pennsylvania Avenue is just down the street 6 blocks, just 6 blocks from the White House. The president will be sworn in at the White House and come down Pennsylvania Avenue. That's been the tradition. Don't know if it'll be the same this time or not, but they've always done that. He's always gotten out of the car and walked down Pennsylvania Avenue. And if that happens, I and the rest of those that will be at the Trump Hotel will be able to stay inside in the warmth and watch the president as he comes down the inaugural parade route. And so I would encourage you to be a part of it. If you would like to go, if you would like to get your own ticket and you'd like to go, the way you go is to go to the website, and it's called Presidential Inaugural Prayer Breakfast. Presidential Inaugural Prayer Breakfast.org. And if you go to that website, you can order a ticket. And if you don't like to do it on the website and you'd like to do it in person, then you just call my dear friend Mary Turner. Her name is Mary, M-E-R-R-I-E, Turner, T-U-R-N-E-R. She is the hostess. She is the hostess of this Presidential Inaugural Prayer Breakfast.org. She's the hostess of that. And you can call her and make a reservation and pay for your ticket with her. Her phone number is 1-800-523-0971. 1-800-523-0971. That's the 800 number to call to get your ticket. If you want to go online and do it, you can go to the Presidential Inaugural Prayer Breakfast.org. But meet me in D.C. Now, leading up to the 20th is the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. The Wiley Drake Show will be live on location on Capitol Hill. I do not know whether we'll be in the Trump Hotel or not. If they will allow me in there, I'll be in there. If not, I'll be right outside. And if they have too many guards up there, I'll be as close as I can get without being an outlaw. I will be legal. I'll stay legal. But at 12 noon on the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th, at 12 noon, we will do a live broadcast from as close to Trump Towers as the security will allow us. And then each day on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. That'll be dark, but at 8 p.m. we'll be doing a live broadcast from Capitol Hill. The Wiley Drake Show, the Congressional Prayer Conference in Washington, D.C. We'll be there, and there's same old thing we always say. 2 ways you can be there. One is boots on the ground. The other is prayer in the air. If you'd like to call us right now and be prayer in the air, I'm going to give you the phone number and the access code. Brother Bobby, are you still there? Guess not. But if you'd like to call and be on the line, it's 712-432-1690. 712-432-1690. Put in your access code 399-430-pound. 399-430-pound, and you can join us live right here on the Wiley Drake Show from our studio in the Good Park. The name of the town here is Buena Park. In Spanish, I'm told that means good. And I know what park means. It's a place you put your car. You park your car. But at any rate, Buena Park is where we're located. And you could call us right now. Or you could walk in right now if you're here at 6801 Western Avenue. We will allow you to come in the studio and be seated on a comfortable couch and be a part of the Wiley Drake Show. Boots on the ground or prayer in the air, whatever you're comfortable with. So I would encourage you to join us in D.C., join us here, and be a part of what God is doing.
We have something interesting that we didn't tell you about, and then we're going to go back into this Muslim issue, although we're short on time. Last night, Pastor Drake and I got invited to see a Christmas get-together for the Trinity Broadcast Network down in Tustin. It was on their praise show, and it literally was just a bunch of really good singers sitting around a piano singing old Christmas carols and telling stories.
Amen.
So it was very interesting. They had a pretty good size audience. He and I were there. We got our fair share of time on camera because they were actually shooting pictures of the audience and what we were doing. We will try to do it, but if somebody has a little more time and awareness of the TBN network, and you can find this praise show of this piano and the choir singers, and you can send it to us so that we can do a little bit of work with it, we sure appreciate it.
Now, the show is called The Praise Show, and it's on a regular basis on TBN, Trinity Broadcast Network, and we've worked with them over the years. But this particular program is the special Christmas celebration on the Praise program. So if you can find the special Christmas celebration from TBN on the Praise program, as Brother asked you to, please get in touch with us. Please let us know how to find it as well. And now, Mr. Davis, what else?
I am really getting upset over these excuses they're making for this Somali at Ohio State University. It is amazing to me that they are doing everything they can to make him not the bad guy. Why I am concerned about that, and it's amazing the number of liberals who are complaining that the officer, the police officer, the university police officer who confronted him, and he would not follow the officer's orders, he would not drop the knife, he was continuing to be a threat to the public after he'd already hurt a bunch of the public. The officer finally had to shoot and kill him. They are complaining because the officer shot and killed him. I can't even begin how, with a straight face, you could say such a thing. That is so ignorant.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I've come up with several sayings over the years: another victory for Jesus and the good guys, and boots on the ground and prayer in the air, and another victory, and so forth, and I believe in that. But there's another one that I come up with quite often to sort of vent my frustrations when I see innocent people in jail, and I see anybody, even a guilty person, being mistreated in jail. Jail is for the criminals, and if a person's in there legally and criminally, that's fine. But they don't have a right to starve them. They don't have a right to beat them. And that becomes frustrating for me. And so when I see things that happen like that, when I get that frustrated level, I came up with another little saying.
Which is?
And that is in reference to this Somali guy. These people are saying he's not a bad guy, but he is, and so forth and so on. I simply say that is a case of SOS. And SOS, ladies and gentlemen, means stuck on stupid. And that's exactly what's going on in that case. Our government and many of our people are SOS, that is, stuck on stupid, because they don't understand the situation. What else do you have for us, brother?
Well, believe it or not, one of the other things that they are screaming and yelling about in light of this Somali and stuff is they're now saying that because Trump is such an evil person, all of the Islamic terrorists now in the United States are getting guns and are going to start doing terrorist attacks to protest Trump being the president. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Trump has already sort of hinted how he's going to deal with that issue, and I back it 100%. And that is, Trump is going to, A, make open carry legal in the United States. We have already many states that says you can open carry. He wants to make it more states. He also wants to make CCW permits like driver's license, which if you have one in one state, they're good in all other states. ladies and gentlemen,
I believe that's called the big word reciprocity.
Oh, I say what hell. Only a communication specialist would know words like that. As a result of that, let me tell you, with just a little bit of training, 1 day worth of training, if we the people were armed, I don't think you'd see a whole lot of terrorist attacks going down, because I think we kind of like have them outnumbered millions to one, in my humble opinion.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm reminded of that famous story in history where we all know about it, and even guys that are my age and even younger, and some older, of course, but that is the whole situation with the attack on Pearl Harbor. You know, I noticed that they call that an attack, and it was. If that were today, they'd probably call it something else, not an attack. But they did attack Pearl Harbor, the Japanese. And later, after the Japanese war was over and the leaders were available, the gentleman that was in charge of Japan at the time of the attack, and I don't know if he still was when he said this.
Admiral Yamamoto.
No, not Yamamoto.
Oh, you mean the one that was acting of the nation itself?
Yeah.
Emperor Hirohito.
Hirohito. They said, Mr. Hirohito, you gave the order to attack America, right, in Pearl Harbor? And he said, yes, I did. And they said, well, why did you not issue a further order to send those planes and those soldiers on into the west coast of California into America? Why didn't you go ahead and do that and attack the whole United States, not just Pearl Harbor? And his comment was, our intelligence told us that people in America were gun freaks. That is, all of them had a gun in their home.
Oh, that's terrible.
At least one. And
At
so he
least.
said for us to attack the mainland with these people all having weapons in their home would have been absolutely foolish, because we would have gotten beat back. So he said we did not attack America simply because we thought they were armed. We know some of them were, but not all of them, but some of them were. And so the point is, folks, when the bad guys think you're armed, they're not going to attack you. I remember a number of years ago, I was in New York, and it was my duty to travel across the city from time to time and to go to work. And so I was at work, and on my way home riding the subway. And I got off the subway at the Grand Central Station stop, because that's where I needed to get off that train and get on another train. And when I stepped down on the walkway, one of the guys came up to me and says, hey, Pastor, said, you see those three guys standing right down there? They're down there on the platform. And he said, I think they're going to try to attack us. He said, it looks like they're watching people coming off the train, and I think they're going to try to attack us and rob us.
Okay.
So we walked on down, got a little bit closer, and as we got a little bit closer, I simply took my hand and stuck it down in the waistband of my trousers, as if I had a gun in there. Now, I did not have, because I did not have a permit at that time, and I did not have a weapon, but I sort of pretended that I did. And those guys elbowed each other and talked a little bit, and guess what? They took off on down the platform. They thought I was armed.
I think that's an excellent thing.
And the very thing that they thought I was armed, I wasn't, but I bluffed them. And if a bluff can stop us from being robbed, how much more if they'd have called our bluff and I would have had a weapon and been able to pull it out. So, ladies and gentlemen, we just need to get real about being armed. We only have 2 minutes. Anything else, Mr. Davis?
Once again, this between this terrorist attack. Oh, by the way, the other thing, real quick on this, ISIS is taking credit for this terrorist attack by this Somali at Ohio State University. Now, I don't know if, in fact, he was a soldier for ISIS, but I can tell you, as far as I'm concerned, ISIS taking credit for the attack is an admission of guilt against ISIS.
Amen. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to end the program. We've turned the phone off, and we'll be back on tomorrow morning. At 9 o'clock, we'll be back here tomorrow morning. If there's anything you'd like to share with us, talk to us. You've got both my number and Mr. Davis's number. Give us a call. Send us an email. Send us something you think we ought to talk about on the program, and we'll be glad to do it. But in the meantime, we're going to say good night. God bless you. And I'm going to go around to the other side where I can get to the turn-off button and say, as they say up the street here in Hollywood, I'm going to say a famous saying from Hollywood. And that famous saying is, when they're through with the show, that's a wrap.
That is a wrap. Y'all say